Welcome to Spotlight TV. I am Emily Zubi, your host, and today we have one of our CEO Circle members and the really interesting story and a leader, woman making history in the whole digital space. Our guest is Jovianna Gonzalez, the founder and CEO of Digital Forensics Now, also known as DFN. And welcome. I love having you on. I was just learning so much that your business is absolutely fascinating. So I want to hear your story and how you got into it.
Oh, thank you so much. And Emily, thank you so much for having me today. So I've had a very long journey, and I'm blessed for everyone I've met along the way. So how I got into technology. So I was always aspiring to be an attorney. And I started off as a receptionist. Then I went to a secretary. Then I went to a paralegal. Then I focused on trial work. And then I started into technology. And then when I moved to Bethesda, Maryland, I became a digital forensic expert. And then when I came back as a business owner, I specialized also in cybersecurity. So basically, yes, in a lump sum, that's pretty much been my career, the stages that I have gone through in life.
And explain the term digital forensics, because I was getting more clear on this before we started the show, and I was learning exactly. That's a very big title and a big area. So what does it mean? Who are the clients out there that, need digital forensics?
Sure. So digital forensics, what it is that you clone devices, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's a laptop, whether it's a desktop. And what we go do is that we go looking for the evidence that attorneys or even organizations, if they fire someone or they're under investigation because they have stolen data, we are engaged in trying to find, actually not trying to find, but find the smoking gun for attorneys to be able to win their cases. Either they get dismissed or they get settled. So that's digital forensics. In the cybersecurity area, what we do is that when you are hacked or you have a business email compromise, we are brought in to investigate. And that also falls under forensics. And we find the root cause and we identify what data has been exfiltrated. In addition to that, for cybersecurity, we serve as advisory to organizations to be able to, for them to know what controls and what safeguards they need to have in place so that they could qualify for a better insurance premium. So that's the difference between both of them. But digital forensics is the core competency of Digital Forensics Now.
And so you're telling a little bit about the story, but you also made history in technology. Tell us about that.
Yes, and this was God's blessing. So I learned about 2 years ago, that Digital Forensics Now is the first Hispanic woman-owned company in the U.S.
Love that.
Yes. So I'm really humbled by it, and really I never imagined in a million years that my company would be would have that type of impact in the U.S.
I mean, I knew when we were forming the CEO Circle that I wanted, I had a wish list of women in specialties, and tech was definitely, women in technology was definitely one of them. So I pursued you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I definitely knew, but you're part of history. And how have you seen, particularly in Miami, how have you seen that technology change?
Well, I've definitely have seen it evolved a lot. Back in 2014, when I was trying to transition from a trial paralegal to an e-discovery specialist, which is processing the data that a digital forensic expert collects for attorneys to be able to review it on a platform. And there wasn't many positions as e-discovery specialist. You had to go to Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C. So that's back in 2015. When I came back in 2018, there was all types of different positions for that role. So I've seen the changes, and now it's just a must-have. Technology, everyone uses devices. Everybody communicates. Everybody's glued to their phone, or even their laptop. Even in children, you see them use technology. So it's a must to have for attorneys, for organizations, to know what data they have.
Right. And it's such a key point. I mean, there isn't one crime show or, any of these shows that the first thing, it seems like nowadays that they say, let's check those cell phone records. And, that's where always the biggest mystery, the whole case right then and there. I mean, that whole idea of it being in the cloud and, having a record. But I mean, it comes down to that. But I imagine that is a lot of data to have to review. So, I mean, do you have a big team? Do you have, how do you process that type of client who comes to you and says, this is what we need to do? And how long does it take?
Long. That's something that I'm always asked every day. How long is this going to take to clone my phone? And I'm like, it depends. But
you would have fun with mine, no?
It depends on the storage size of your cell phone. Now
I keep everything on the backpack. It's like I started cleaning out messages from, I don't know, I won't even say what year it was.
But, now that you mentioned delete, many people think that you actually delete it. And that's where a forensic expert comes in. And with the right processes and the right tools, we are able to recover deleted data. And we're able to recreate people's patterns and be able to have a really good grasp of how someone thinks and what are their actions. So I'm very passionate, and so is my team. Yes, I love I've always had an investigative mindset. And then within time, it has developed even more because I know what attorneys are looking for, because I spent 20 years working with attorneys, and I sat in the hot seat while at trial or arbitration. So it's fascinating what I do. Every case that we get is different.
What tips would you say, like, I don't know, top 3 tips that you would give to companies now, being on, both sides of it, but, what would you say are some of the things that they should tell their employees in handling their company, laptop, cell phones? I mean, obviously, not to use it for personal use, right?
Everybody does.
Right. But, what are some of the other things that you would say are like the 3 biggies?
So I definitely would recommend that everybody keeps 2 devices, your work and your personal, because the 2 together is very, very incriminating. But a second advice that I would give to an organization is making sure that they have the right control systems, and knowing where your data resides and who has the right privileges, or the right privileges to be able to access that data. The more you restrict people, let's say, for example, you have accounting department. Only people that are working in accounting should have access to those financial records. If everybody does, then you're more exposed for people to steal data. So that's a number 2. And a number 3 would be limit, or pretty much do not let your USB port or your Thunderbolt port, really just don't let anybody be able to plug anything into their device.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, and also too, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to even think back before the phone became your computer, right?
Right.
So documents and everything that you save onto your attachments and to your files on your phone, I imagine that, like now the phone has become so much more, right? I mean, it's like that mini computer that, so in terms of sending documents or attachments or saving things, I mean,
absolutely. And you bring a great point, because when I first started, forensics, you would see storage size of 64 gigabytes or 128 gigabytes. Now we're seeing 256, 512, and then 1 terabyte. And when we start seeing those 1 terabytes, we're like, there's a lot of data in here. And oh my goodness, we go back and we recover in the sense that we're able to extract chats, social media, locations back from 2008, 2015. So
Wow.
it's amazing how much people store and keep their data. And it just, when there's an investigation, there's a lot of stuff to go through. So it takes an investigative mindset and a right approach to be able to find that smoking gun for attorneys to win their cases.
Wow. And who is your ideal client, or if someone's listening to you now, what areas, what specialties, who would make the ideal client for you?
Everybody could be our client, right? But I would say the majority of our clients would be law firms, investigators, and organizations as well. But it's primarily law firms because attorneys need that data to be able to investigate and know what their case is about. Because without that data, they don't know what there is, what those devices hold, or pretty much what those devices hold.
What has been the biggest challenge that you as a leader, a woman-owned business, Hispanic-owned woman, right? What has been the biggest challenge or pain point that you've experienced in having your own business?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I've had many challenges, and my mindset is like those challenges become opportunities and learn lessons, of course. My biggest challenge was when I opened my business. I came from a mindset of working for someone and having that work come to me. But when I went on my own, I had to shift my mindset to being a CEO of a company. And that itself, it takes time and it's a learning curve. In addition to that, I had to learn many roles. I had to learn how to be a salesperson, how to completely do the work by myself. Because when I came from Bethesda, Maryland, and I came here to work on my company, I didn't have anybody. So I was doing my own accounting, my own getting the clients, the work itself. So I had to wear many hats. So,
Right.
so I would say that was one of my biggest challenges.
And that's something we've talked a lot about in the CEO circle, right? It just, you set out to you have a vision for a business and the thing that you love to do. And sometimes the nitty gritty, the operational, the checking the boxes, crossing the T's, dotting the I's takes over what you set out to do that you love, because it's keeping the wheels in motion. So I think that's I think that's a very real type of challenge that I hear over and over again. What advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say fear. I've pretty much have always throughout my career been a risk taker in the sense that I've transitioned through so many positions in my life, in my career, and I've been able to have the opportunity to always reinvent myself. But as at my younger self, I would say, open up your own company. I would say that. I wish I would have started that at an earlier age.
What year did you start?
2017.
Wow.
Yes. And I took a break during that time because when I came to Miami, I was full-time working on my company. But then I was approached and I was asked if I was interested in doing cybersecurity. And as always being curious and taking risks, I'm like, absolutely. I get to investigate ransomware cases. I get to do business email compromises, really focus on having a different mindset on these cases. So I took up on that offer. on top of it, it was great salary, and I was already making money as my own. But then my business became a side gig, and 2 years, 3 years after me working and focusing in cybersecurity, I'm like, I'm quitting my full-time job, and I'm going back to my business, and I'm going to dedicate my time full time there, because that was my passion, was to own a digital forensics company.
How'd you come up with the name Digital Forensics Now? Do you I'm curious.
So there's a story behind that. So now I came up with it because attorneys need everything now.
Okay.
It's not like they give you.
So true.
It's not like they give you a week in advance or 2 weeks in advance. No, they call us up and they're like, "Hey, are you available tomorrow or in 2 days?" And or they call us on a Friday and we have to work over the weekend. So considering that I've worked with lawyers 20 years in the legal field, I came up with now. I wanted to do digital forensics now. And that we pride ourselves in now because our turnaround time for the work is fast, and we're available now. People call us at 11, 12 o'clock at night, and we're available. We have a team that is ready to take off.
So you have your phone on at that hour.
I always have my phone. Yes. Yes.
Let's talk about the cybersecurity part of it.
Okay. Well, for cybersecurity, this is very interesting. So cybersecurity has many areas of specialty, right? I focused primarily my initial when I started cybersecurity was investigating ransomware cases and business email compromises. And what that consisted of was finding the root cause and finding what was exfiltrated, and then also negotiating with criminals to see if we could bring down the ransom. So after that, after specializing in that, I got into advisory services. And I took a big interest in that because I wanted to make sure that our businesses in our community would have the right safeguards in place so that they would feel more protected and less vulnerable to hackers. And that's how I got into cybersecurity.
Wow.
Yeah.
And, it seems to me like every other day I get some sort of email that, they're telling me that, thank you for buying something on eBay and that they're going to get my PayPal. And I am so tempted to, they know, like I copy the email, I block it, I delete it, but it seems like the whole scammers and hackers have gotten so sophisticated.
Absolutely.
And when you think of these big companies and you say to yourself, how how do they get hacked and how do you not? What are some of the things that you can do that, like cybersecurity hygiene? I don't know.
So, I mean, anybody could get hacked. You could have the best software and top talent, and you still could get hacked, because the one thing that I've realized is that hackers are always going to be a step ahead of us because we have to focus on the defense. They're always going to be that step ahead. So basically, the basic controls that you could have in place is multi-factor. You should have the least privilege. And by, I mean, least privilege is really knowing where do you host your sensitive data and knowing who has the right privileges to access that data. In addition to that, you should have some type of endpoint response detection tool. And by that, I mean is that you're constantly going to get phishing emails. Everybody's going to be a target, right? So if these organizations have the right tools and the right talent in place, they're able to quarantine the attempt, or once they're inside your system, you're able to quarantine it and you're able to minimize the damage that could be done. But it's not no more like, when am I going to get hacked? No, you got to have the mindset of you're going to get hacked.
Wow.
Yes.
That's kind of that's a scary thought, but with that, can you give us an example? Obviously, can't tell us the client, but can you give us an example of a client that came to you with a pain point problem, and how you help them?
Um, So, in the sense of when it's a ransomware case, we've had cases where getting into the password to get into your server has been soccer mom 123. So that is like really bad. So, and how do we help organizations? Is that we help them put those controls, those five or 10 controls that you need to have in place so that you could qualify for a better cyber insurance premium, because insurance premium, cyber insurance, is very expensive. So they base their quotes and their assessment is if you have those safeguards in place.
And are there some that are better than others? And what about, different size businesses and who they should go to and, to get that type of insurance? I mean, for the business that's, $1 million to 2 and, not necessarily, making mega millions. What do you suggest for them in terms of insurance? Is that something business brokers take care of? I mean, I don't.
What I've seen is that many people do not budget for technology, and they need to be more educated and really educate their staff more. But it's a lack of budget of it. That's what is always within medium-sized businesses or small businesses, is not having the money to invest in the right infrastructure or even hire the right people. So if you don't have that in place, you're going to be a lot more vulnerable and more likely to get hacked.
What's your vision and journey as you think forward, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What are you doing? How are you doing it? How has it changed? What's on the long-term plan?
Well, in the sense of cybersecurity, everyone's going to want to have those tools in place and those people and processes, and have someone provide consistent training, like tabletop exercises, but not like once a year for their employees, like maybe once a month. And what I see projected like in 5 years is that hackers and criminals are getting more and more sophisticated. So instead of us trying to always be on the defense side, we need to step up and start thinking differently.
Well, and you're speaking for us.
Okay.
One of our speakers, we do our lunchtime labs. So what are some of the tips or myth busters, if you will, some of the things that, I mean, this is a really important topic, obviously. And, kind of what's the promise out there that you could do something that you do it better and make minor changes on?
Well, for cybersecurity, there's no guarantee. So, like I mentioned before, but I would advise to small, medium, any business is know where your data is stored and protect that as much as possible and limit who has access to it. And that will most likely reduce the risk of you being hacked.
Let me ask you a question, because I've seen these ads now with the Google and the whole idea of the privacy.
Right.
And, they're like, they're going after, Google saying, Apple saying Safari, that, all your eyes are looking at you in terms of search history.
Right.
When you speak with companies, is there any of that, like, what's your advice there in terms of, what you're using as operating systems? Does that really change, or, what are your recommendations?
Well, for operating systems, they're pretty much going to always stay the same, right? But we go back into for organizations is there's never going to be the right tool, right? You have to have the right processes, right, to be able to limit and your risk to being hacked, right? And there's not really no tips that you could really give out. There's really just a checklist that
Right.
you have to follow.
But search history, like
Yeah.
now I would imagine, and that's a really important part of digital forensics, is the search history kind of tells you what they were thinking, right?
Yeah, and how many times they misspelled a word. But for digital forensics, I mean, everything's recoverable. All your search history, we could extract.
It doesn't matter whether it's Google's,
Right. It doesn't matter whether it's Google, Safari, Firefox. All that data is available on your digital devices.
Data's data.
Yeah, and it's going to continue to have more data. So data really hasn't changed, because before we were just shoveling paper, right? And now it's just data has grown even more because we have more electronic devices. So for digital forensics, when we have a case, it's just not like, oh, give me your cell phone and we'll investigate just that. No, we have to go into your email. We have to go into your desktop. We have to go into your laptop, even your iPad. So investigations now, it's not one device. It's 5 devices for
Right.
one person.
Right.
So
it's a lot.
Yeah, data's just growing, and it's amazing what a cell phone could store from your location. We're able to retrieve addresses, your photos, where they're taking. You are able to recover the address, and in addition to that, social media apps. You're able to get Snapchat. You're able to get Instagram. You're able to get Facebook. I mean, there's a lot being stored there. Your search history is like, whoa! It's like
Absolutely.
your passwords.
Absolutely
Yes,
fascinating.
yes.
Well, we have a couple minutes left. So this is the time of the show where you get to give your commercial.
Okay.
Your 30-second, and tell us where to find you, and social media, your website, and you tell us how to get a hold of you.
Sure. So the best way to get a hold of me is definitely on LinkedIn, where our company is very active there. In addition to that is on our website, Digital Forensics Now. We have incident response forms. We're available 24/7. So it's basically just filling out a form. It goes directly to our receptionist or whoever's on call, and we're able to get back to you as soon as possible. But we're also on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Snapchat. But primarily it would be LinkedIn and definitely our website.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you. I mean, I'm so impressed. I learned a lot of it. I'm sitting here and, it's wonderful. I look forward to having you as a speaker at our CEO Circle Lunchtime Lab. And thank you for being on Spotlight. And
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
we thank you for joining us. We're very grateful to our partnership with community newspapers. And we will see you on Spotlight TV next week, 10 a.m., same time. Thank you.
Thank you.